Hey everybody, welcome to week 8 of Bench Talk. I'm Connor Meany, and today we are very fortunate to be joined by Pat Burke. Pat, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me, my coffee there. Thank you for
having me. So how's life at the moment? You're in Orlando, is that right?
I am. It's going pretty good. Summer is, I'd say more than halfway through. My two boys just graduated from high school. I just dropped my little girl off at a camp up in North Carolina. The wife and I are doing well.
And so Florida has been hit pretty badly at the moment in terms of COVID and different things. How much has life been able to be kind of normal? So your boys graduating, girl able to go to camp. Is it business as usual, or what's happening?
No, it's I'd say there's a number of different ways to define it, but obviously with the news reporting that a lot of cases are popping up in Florida, that always creates a little bit of fear for everybody. But Florida is unique in its sense that there's a little bit of a cowboy element here. It's like everybody's ready to fight. You don't have your mask on, you have your mask on. If you're too close. I mean, I almost got into an argument the other day just grabbing some cheese at the grocery store. So I don't know if everybody's experiencing it like Florida, but it's like, maybe people are getting sunburned, they're getting a little more irritated as they walk around. But it's everybody's a little bit on heightened alert. And, it's almost like backing somebody into a corner. You never know what they're going to do until you get a little too close.
A brave man picks a fight with a 6'10" guy buying his cheese.
Well, they learn to punch low and they break that.
And so, obviously on the radar of a lot of people, you're pretty close to the bubble. You're close to Disneyland. So, but what's local perception of the fact that, one of the stories that came out in the news last week that people were talking about was why is there so much testing of the NBA players when there's kind of issues in wider Florida? Are local people happy enough that it's happening, or is it just this thing that is in Disneyland, kind of, it's not even on your radar?
Yeah, it's not on your radar. I think, everybody knows the magnitude of that league, being a world-class league and all these franchise teams. But they also know that the security around that bubble is, those guys are not intended to come out of it and no one's intended to get in. So it is so far removed from here that I don't think you would have people, kind of busting up to the chain link fence, asking for autographs. You can tell even through the videos that you're watching is whenever they're walking through the resorts of that, it's very secluded. It looks like it's them, the referees, and medical staff, and that looks.
Yeah. Your best chance of finding someone is if you see Lou Williams roaming the streets of Orlando at the moment. Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
You see a bunch of 7-footers with masks on. You start to. Maybe those guys have broken the bubble. Yeah.
And so it's fascinating, obviously, to watch, and it comes with the context baseball yesterday. It already has cancelled games and things aren't working out well for that league. The NBA seems to have kind of got a fairly good situation there. What do you think the basketball will be like? It's about to start properly on Wednesday. So what do you think teams will be able to play normally, or how does that work?
I'd say it's yet to be determined. I know that the fans and the crowd really add to the sensationalism of the game.
Yeah.
So you'd have more of a theatrical performance. I don't think you're going to see as much chest pounding and, kind of putting I haven't even seen if LeBron has done the whole powder and throwing nobody there to see it. Yeah. So it's almost like when you take that element out of it, I think it would be more intimate with conversation, if that makes sense. So the two opposing teams probably talk quite a bit more of what's going on because they're the only ones experiencing it in the gym outside of the live TV audience. So I'd say that the game will change in its, if it makes sense, its theatrics.
Yeah, no, it does.
It won't have that little piece inside of that. So it'd probably be very hard for the cameraman to find that little teaser at halftime of somebody showing their tattoo and pulling back because there's nobody to show it to,
Yeah.
It's a little bit awkward.
And you've obviously been in that world and you've played alongside big stars. How much it must vary a lot, but how much do guys feed off that energy? Are there certain guys who need to have either people cheering for them or even against them. Like I saw T-Mac on one of the shows the other day kind of saying, oh, I used to love when the crowd were against me. It kind of was the big motivating factor. Would that be like hard for some of the players to even get up to play some of these games?
I'd say it would, but they're gonna find that trending factor after the first game. After the second game, they're gonna realize this is a little bit different animal that we're going up against here without the fans, without the support, or even without the angst. But for sure, the crowd makes a difference. You know, there's a little bit of a vice of pressure inside that you not only do you want to, but you know the audience almost demands your best efforts. So imagine, you know, when you get a little bit tired and you're going for that second, third rebound or the steal, instead of going down to neutral, you've got to always put it back up because the fans are always watching. You've got, you know, 10, 20, 30,000 people watching you. You can't drop a level inside of that. And that's what really brings the next level of excitement. You know, when someone gets the tip dunk or someone makes that big three, and then all of a sudden you can feel the atmosphere changes in the room. So that's why going back, it's going to be interesting to see when it's not there, how they respond to that. And even, you know, maybe even listening to the announcers, like what do they do when they're trying to capture that and articulate kind of the energy in the room. And the energy in the room is, you know, the guy at the end of the bench clapping and times two.
Yeah, exactly. And even that's, it's strange. They're not doing all their little dances at the end of the bench either. They're sitting in kind of three rows of seats, which is strange. When you're playing, like, do teams get reputations of like, this is a road team, or this is like, oh, we're going to this team's building. They're very good at home. Like obviously Denver and things have situations where they like there's like the altitude and things that helps them. But in this, obviously it's a neutral venue that will make things a lot more even. Like, do you think that teams will kind of sway away from what they'd be known for then and try things differently than they would normally, or is it just kind of try and be true to who they are?
Yeah, interesting question. Again, I think it's a time will tell.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it's a shortened season.
Yeah.
The atmosphere is different, and everybody's experiencing this hotel accommodation in a similar way. So it's like, okay, we're evening the playing field. We're all right here. There's no long bus trips or flights or anything. I mean, you're 15 minutes from the arena, and everybody has access to a gym. So I don't know how much people can almost reinvent themselves to this, but obviously they're going to face some sort of adversity and figure out different little things about it. So, you know, again, here's just one tangent. I mean, you think about some of these guys, they do well when they're going out at night, right? And now you don't have that, right? You know, you're just down in the hotel lobby playing ping pong by yourself. I don't know. It's like you're bored. So it's like there is an element where we have to kind of wait and see what happens. And it's like it's almost like you and I talking. We won't even know until after the season's over how it impacted these guys. Like how strange was it to be inside that bubble, to be going by a lot of your peers and just kind of commanding that whole area. So I don't know. It's one of those things where you sit back and you kind of want to like hear it from all different perspectives. You know, it's like, how is this working, or how is it a unique experience outside of just being so close? But how does it go with, again, without the crowd, with the tempo? Like, how do you reinvent yourself? You know, one of the things I thought was interesting was as they're getting ready to start this up, you have the Eastern Conference teams and the Western Conference teams scrimmaging each other almost as a strategic way not to play people in their own conference. Yeah. And I don't know why they would do that. It's just I don't know. It's just something that, again, I think time is gonna tell a lot.
Does it, when you're seeing the stuff of like the hotels and the bubble and things, does it remind you of like national team, of almost being kind of where you're secluded you're away from your family, you're in a hotel for a couple of weeks at a time? And do you think that would play a factor that like guys who have been in that sort of environment, kind of, it's almost familiar for them?
Sure. I think it's a lot like the European style, you know, where you're there for a couple of days, hotel room. I mean, obviously in the NBA when you travel as well, but this is closer to the American college type feel. But again, as anybody who's ever been on vacation, there is a point where it wears on you,
Yeah.
right? You know, you're going through, you know, the first day of the vacation, it's pretty cool to go to that breakfast bar. You're loading up on sausages, bacon, and eggs. By the third day, you start to realize, hey, these eggs aren't so good. I really miss this. I just want to sleep in my own bed. So again, as we start getting further along in this, I think you're going to see less and less videos of these guys playing in the beach sand. You know, you're going to see less of these people fishing. You know, because right now they're making it look like it's this brochure looks like, man, now I really want to be in the NBA. But I mean, look, I'm living in Florida. We're not in our swimming pools all the time. We're not out with sunglasses, basking in the sun. So after a while, it's going to start to clear itself of this is work, you know, and this comes with also the adversity and challenges of, are you winning in the system or are you losing in the system? Like, what do you change around? And then again, you got to add in that variable. Some of these teams aren't even coming with the complete roster that they had during the regular season. They got new, you know, they got new players on their team. So it's, again, I don't want to repeat this answer, but time will tell.
Yeah. Of
During
course.
that time, you know, a lot of those interviews are going to share, and hopefully they're pretty candid about it, because right now the NBA is trying to make it sound like they're in Hawaii, they're in beautiful Orlando, everything is amazing, and it's like, we'll see.
Yeah, but if you were to take either of your team, obviously the Suns were a more talented team, but like from a team dynamic point of view, would it have been way different in that bubble for both of the teams that you were on? I think you spent a lot more time with the Suns guys, and there was kind of more of a team dynamic to it. Probably with the Magic, if you're in the bubble, you're looking to see who else is in the hotel at the same time.
I can relate to that first year we played Denver and we got snowed in. And I think we were stuck there, I want to say almost 4 days. And it was like, get out of your room, go down to the lobby, and all of us all the time playing cards, talking, doing something. And that bond that we had was, you know, obviously bigger than basketball. I always share that there was a number of guys that were in similar moments in their career and life, kind of in the winter of their career, married with kids. So we were all kind of going through the same thing. Brian Grant, Steve Nash, you know, so the same things were going on as far as the communication. I would say in this bubble, we probably have a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
it was a good fun. Then again, on the Magic, yeah, I don't know if it would be the same. You know, I mean, not to say that it was just different. It would be like you probably pass by the guys in the lobby, and we're all going in different directions. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
There wouldn't be any organized. All of us are going to the pool at 12. It'd be like, hey, 2 guys are going to the pool, 1 guy's going for a run. You know, so.
Yeah.
And then in his room.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys playing video games as well at the moment, showing off their new PlayStations that they've been sent. So.
Oh my gosh! I tell you what, if you are any type of gaming system right now, you want to get your systems into that bubble. You want to get all your new video games in there, because that's a great little testing and marketing space right now for a lot. And that's I'm sure they're doing something.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess the last question about the bubble is, like, these teams have 8 games, I think, before the playoffs. They're trying to get into a rhythm to actually like be able to perform at a high level. From your own kind of experience, how long does it take for teams to, like, obviously they had a big portion of the season, then it's cut off for 3 months. They're now going to try and get back into a rhythm. How long does it take NBA teams to kind of get back into the normal kind of where you kind of feel comfortable in what you're doing?
I mean, just from my point of view, I'd say it would take, you know, that 8 games, because there's so many different things inside of preparation. You know, the coaches have test different lineups. They've got to get the guys mentally right. You've got to get your scorers to get the green light going again. You know, people see a guy like James Harden, they see him just, you know, shooting and making shots. Well, it does take a level of confidence inside of that to be okay with the shots that don't go in. So I think that They slowly bring these guys in. Obviously, they don't want anybody getting hurt. They got to get back into the rhythm and the speed of the game. One experience I had in any type of relation to this is I remember I was training here in Orlando, and it was towards the end of my career. And I was playing with a group of guys that were probably around 30 to 45 years old. And I've been playing with them all summer to stay in shape. And it was more of, passing the ball and getting my cardio. And then I went over to Poland. Now, Poland, it's a good league. It's not the greatest league in the world, but it's a good league. And when I got off the plane and went to the first practice, I thought I was playing with the fastest human beings on earth, right? Because you're so used to the environment that you're in. So in relation to that, you go back into that, how many games does it take? These are the fastest, biggest human beings on earth with this high skill level. So you have to kind of get them ready for that. Say what's acceptable as far as energy and what's not acceptable. What do you need to do? So, I mean, if they just started, I guarantee you a lot of guys would be probably shocked and embarrassed going on live TV if they just started right up, with the first game. So again, it's just like, again, not to get too deep into this, I am sure with the pandemic that we've just gone through, they do show these guys working out and then they're like, their gyms at home. I guarantee you there's a couple guys that got a beer belly and they need the 8 games. They're not showing it on TV, but they probably have one of those Peloton bikes in their, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
They probably have one of those Peloton bikes in their room getting ready. So yeah, again, so I think it has a lot to do with so many different levels of individual, team, tactical. Even the coaches have to be prepared for these things. So yeah. I mean, I don't know the science behind it, but I'm sure 8 games will probably give them enough time to actually get them ready and be ready for the product. Because again, at the end of the day, the NBA is a product.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
they have to be able to have all those guys ready. So I'm sure if they even said, "Hey, we're going to postpone the season for 2 more weeks," the NBA would be like, "We get it. We don't want to put out a bad product and have people out of it."
Yeah. The other obviously big NBA thing that happened during the summer, and I know you've talked on this a little bit already, is The Last Dance. And like we've already talked about your kind of dealings with Jordan, locking him down for those couple of minutes that you did. He had to check it. He checked himself out of the game. But one of the interesting things that came up in it, I thought, was just the NBA environment of what you could see like behind the scenes and the dynamic with like front office. And I was just wondering, is that like, when you saw that, were you seeing something that looked familiar to you? Like, is that not necessarily like the negative relationship with Jerry Krause, but more the openness of like dialogue between players and management? Was that something that in NBA, like, is that normal in NBA teams, that like this is just open, that everybody knows he's earning X, that guy's on Y, and is that just part of the relationships you have with people then?
Yeah, there's an unspoken, probably veteran minimum money line where it's more openly talked about.
Okay.
But everybody in the locker room, they have some sort of understanding of what's going on, because you think about it, we're all being represented by an agent, and those agents are on the phone all the time. So that network is feeding the rumor mill of what's happening. So any player who's not performing, who's on that trade block, they're going to know about it, because I don't find out from you, and let's say you're representing Chicago and I call Detroit, and then that manager tells me something. Well, then I go back to Chicago and I start talking to you again. Now I'm going to tell my player, what's going on. So a lot of times you would have moments inside the season where, you're getting ready for practice and 1 or 2 guys are a little bit quiet, or they're walking in and they probably have their go-to guy that they talk to on the team. Or, some guys who are at such a high level financially, they're just openly blurting it out, F-bombs and this, that, and the other. And you're like, wow. So yeah, it comes with the logo that a lot of that does happen. And
I think you've talked about this before, of kind of like your expectations of being an NBA player and then the reality of being an NBA player. And is that a big part of what, like, the negative experience of actually being an NBA player, that it's not purely sport, that it's like there's so much this other side to it that's just openly out there.
Well, it's wearing on you. So you
Yeah.
you have the best intentions because you're not complaining. You're playing professional basketball at the highest level. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Every day something new is happening. There's a celebrity walking into the locker room. You're traveling to a really cool city. You're getting to play against people. Like there's just so many things. But there is that underlining. It's a business, and whether you're having the greatest moment or whatever, there's still always these other things. It's these phone calls that kind of take you away from being on the court. And, then there's all the politics of, your team, who's playing, who's not, who's in the rotation, why. So you don't look to complain about it, but it is always there,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, it's like, you're loving it because where else are you going to be in that position and how long are you going to be there?
True. Yeah, true. And then you spent the majority of your career obviously in Europe, and that relationship does that same dynamic happen in Europe, or it seems that the coach is king in Europe a lot more, that it's kind of the power kind of thing is more players and coach rather than front office and players as much. Is that fair, or is that?
No, it's funny is there's this, I hate to say it, but there's almost this invisible threat in Europe about you're going to get cut, do it like this. And the reality is the players have all the power. Because when you're sitting there and the team has put together this budget and everybody's in line in that budget and they're getting their TV rights and everything is working in the green, if somebody's rocking the boat or it's not working, now it's up to the front office to make in trade deadlines. If they're in a EuroLeague tournament, they have to be on a certain time when the groups are ending. So there's this threat coming at players, like you have to do this and do this and this and don't do that, or this, or you're going to get this, and you're going, wait. The reality is if we are stirring the water, we're not doing something, you all are more fearful of us and having to trade us and change us than it is anything else. So once you get to that point in Europe where you kind of see it, you're not laughing at them, but you're just kind of like, sure, okay,
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's that lengthy warning, like, hey, we need you to pick this up. Okay, all right, I mean that does at times end in a trade or getting released from a team, but it's going to be weeks. So it's not, in the NBA, when that trade deadline's coming. And then they do it. So So in the U.S., I think it's more because I think the agents are more involved.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that you're hearing kind of what exactly is going on. Like there's a friend of a friend. Like it's like one of the assistant coaches knows your agent, and he's like, "Hey, you better tell Pat. We need him to pick up his lateral quickness, and he's putting on an extra pound or two. He's looking like he's eating chocolate bars all the time. We need him to to get more physically fit, or this and that." And you get those. I never got any of that in Europe. I don't think those lines of communication exist. I thought, again, it's not a knock on European coaches, but I think European coaches do not like conflict. And they don't create a chain of communication where like the assistants kind of go around. There's no player development position inside that. So you don't see anybody going up to anybody and kind of, hey, coach is saying this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting hearing you say some of that, because a lot of those kind of conversations of the player power in Europe seems to be happening over the last kind of 12 months or so, that a lot of the EuroLeague guys are finally looking to get like a player kind of representative body to finally kind of go, no, we need minimum standards. Yeah. Was that like ever discussed back like in the early 2000s when you were playing, or was everyone very separated at that stage where you're just doing your job, but you're not really talking to other pros?
Yeah. There was a movement. When I was with Real Madrid, the Spanish guys, the nationals, all kind of got together, the leadership, and they were looking to create a new deal. And that new deal was about the number of Americans that were coming in, So
Yes.
it was really funny because it was like Felipe Reyes and Herreros. They were like, "Hey, this is going to be good for you too. This is for Bosmans." And I'm like, I don't know. So they wanted us to like go on a lockout, like to stop playing, and everybody was going to do this. And then the night before the lockout, I love this. Felipe came up to me, or I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, what's happening?" He's like, "Oh no, it's finished. It's all finished. It's good." And I'm like, "What happened?" And all they were doing was looking to protect the Spanish guys, which God bless them. You know, they had protected that, like, so many guys under 20 had to be part of the roster.
Okay.
So what it did was create an opportunity so that younger guys would not allowed to come in. They actually forced an agreement that says these guys, like, you have to bring 2 guys up every year. You have to, so they protect. Yeah. Now, as far as all of Europe, there was no talks like that. And I think what happens is the NBA has trailblazed on a lot of these things. So they start creating players associations, and then they start to kind of look over the fence like, hey, the world with social media and telephones is getting smaller. We're able to communicate a lot easier. Why don't we form something so that we can make change? Because the power as far as, you know, the size of contracts, or like protecting players if they get injured, and making sure that they get their financial agreement, that's all on the side of the owners. And it's also all on the side of the governing body, because even in Greece, there was 2 court systems. There's the court system for everything that's happening in the regular world and business world, and then there's a sport court.
Okay.
And the rumor in there was any sport court legal matter, it was almost like your paper went underneath a pile of papers that was, you know, up to a 10-foot goal, and they're like, "Oh, we'll get to that in 4 years." So a lot of guys were sitting there like they were very frustrated with the idea that if there was anything that was going to happen, they were powerless. They had to wait. So it would be, I think it would be obviously beneficial for both parties to have some sort of players association in Europe. The only challenge I see inside of that is that the term of most contracts in Europe are like two years.
Yeah.
I don't see any lengthy space like of, you know, someone who can stay on a board to actually continue conversation for any certain degree of time. It's going to be like 2 years, they're out, new person comes in, restart the whole conversation all over again, where they're going to need some sort of way to find those players that, you know, you find a player from like CSKA or Benetton Treviso, Panathinaikos, you know, you need to find those guys who played for a lifetime. You know, if Jim Moran was still around in his 10 plus years out on Gran Canaria, he would be like the president of the Players Association. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the fears I think that seems to be when you read about it is that it's moving more and more towards just EuroLeague, and that like the likes of Real Madrid and stuff will stop playing ACB, and that this money's in EuroLeague, and that's where this will come about. So it'll be interesting to watch. One of the questions that I'll go through some of the questions we have. Since we were already talking about Panathinaikos, one of the questions we got in from Yanis was, what's your lasting memory of Greece and Greek basketball after playing 3 years over there?
My lasting memory, it's kind of an overall. The experience of the fanatics inside of Greece, there's just so much passion involved in it. You know, the preparation for a game, during the game, after the game. I mean, you know, here in America, it's like you stand up and get excited for when somebody dunks a ball, they shoot a 3, you know, not even until the playoffs do you get people standing for excitement. The level of excitement and loyalty that people have for their clubs in Europe is second to none. You know, like we would have people in Greece coming to the games, you know, I don't know if they're emergency boat flares, I don't know if they're torches, but, you know, you're sitting there holding this lighted stick, you know, these guys are they're cheering and singing songs the whole game. So I'd say that the long-lasting impression or memory that I have is just the level at which they invest and that they celebrate sport over there. And you'd see it for every club. So it wasn't just my Panathinaikos fans, it was every sport. And soccer, ladies volleyball, whatever it was amazing to see how much they came out to support them, but when they did, how much they invested in it.
Panathinaikos have the Gate 13 guys who are like the most serious of their ultras, and so you've played in some major European derbies. So you've played like the Panathinaikos Olympiacos game, and you've also played Real Madrid Barcelona. Hit a game winner for Real Madrid against Barcelona. What of the derbies kind of stands out the most for you? Is there one that's kind of, in terms of like just intensity to it, is there any that stands out?
I'd say the first Panathinaikos Olympiacos finals experience.
Okay.
I was just the other day, I was watching one of them in a flashback online, and it just brought back so many memories of almost of a distinction. Like when I watched the way I was playing, I'm more nervous and excited than I am just letting the game come naturally, because the level was so high. I mean, every sports paper, every media outlet is just talking about this game. So, you're playing with Dino Raja, Dejan Bodiroga, Nando Gentili, Frankie Alberts, all these guys, and everybody was just playing at such a level of excitement. But then when I look back, I'm saying, wow, Dino really had command of all of his movement and skill set. Like, he just looks like he's out playing in the driveway. I look like I'm running 110 miles an hour trying to get every rebound, like diving into the crowd. It's like, it's that type of experience where you look back and you're like, wow, that was a good chemistry on that team. But then you start to see a difference in the way that you start adapting to that environment. So I don't think I was ever as nervous as I was in that one. Obviously we ended up winning. So you realize, okay, I have a value to give. I'm part of this team. So that really stands out to me, is that finals with Olympiacos.
One of the other questions we have is just the differences for you personally playing in America and then playing in Europe. So how much did your game have to change? So let's take probably 2000 and 2001, or like your Magic year and Panathinaikos. How much do you have to adjust your game, like when you're playing in the two different kind of settings?
Where I was at with, well, first of all, the similarities, you got to find your niche. Are you a post-up player? Are you, do you shoot a soft jump shot 15 feet out? Are you a three-point shooter? On the defensive end, are you a post stopper? Are you a rebounder? Do you block shots? All of these. Are you, on offense, are you a stretch 4 or 5? So a lot of those things I had to find and initiate who I was, and I think that was more understood in the NBA than it was in Europe. In Europe, it was like, hey, we need a 5, and we need you to, work as hard as you can. In the NBA, it's like, look, Pat, they're going to know who you are in 3 games, because everyone's going to scout, and you'll be on a board in every locker room saying, hey, he shoots a 15-foot jump shot. He's left-handed. He's probably going to go to the middle on the left side, probably 90% of his post-ups. So everything is understood. So those were the things that you had to think about all the time in the NBA. It's like they're always looking to make you counter to what you want to do. So, and again, I say this to the listeners and the viewers, the NBA, the fastest, biggest human beings that, every night. So you're not getting a night off where you're bumping into a soft body. It's like everybody's as big as a Mack truck, and they're all looking to compete at the highest level. So there was that. In Europe, there is a degree of, some guys could be slower, some guys could be not as big. It's like they are good players, but they're just not these big, huge with guys with athletic prowess that you're just like, wow, was this guy created in a laboratory?
Yeah. One of the other questions that's along the same sort of lines is what was more difficult about playing in Europe than the NBA? So obviously the NBA has these big athletes. It actually feeds into something Luka Doncic last year said, and people kind of laughed at it and didn't understand what he was saying, was that he found it easier to score in the NBA than in Europe. But that actually makes a lot of sense in terms of like spacing that's available to him, the way that they call hand checking, the kind of like momentum of a game. So what did you find that was kind of harder playing in Europe than the NBA?
The officiating is much tighter in the NBA, in Europe, as far as down low. Let me talk about Europe first. Then, again, it's like I've mentioned this in the past. When I came out of the college system here in America, where the game was a little bit faster, even though it relates a lot more to the European game. The European game is without a doubt 5 guys looking to take one good shot on every offensive possession. So it's really organized as far as like what play you're going to run. It's just all the time. The NBA is more freed up in the idea that, hey, we have 2 scorers and they got the green light to do everything. Yeah. And if we don't, we have some, not to insult it, we have some sort of soft structure as far as what we're doing with our initial attack, our secondary offensive break, all of these things. But it's not to the level that Europe is as far as that. And there's benefits to it. It's not to say that Europe is a boring level of basketball and it's slowed down, because I always go back to this in the 90s when USA basketball was getting their butt handed to them by Yugoslavia and all these teams that were coming out. That's when USA basketball had to change their whole mentality from the leadership going, hey, we got to build this from the bottom up. So they got rid of all these ideas of the dream team playing fast as can be, because that's what NBA basketball created inside these players. We're going to beat them by just our skill alone. Like, no, you got to beat them tactically. Yeah. So they would go back and they would change everything. They would get Mike Krzyzewski, to take it on, and then of course Colangelo then creates. Okay, so when we're going to pick a team, we got to find our nucleus guy first. We got to find the guy who's good in the locker room first. We got to find the guy who's going to pick everybody up. And they changed it. Before they were thinking, oh, we're just going to get Shaquille O'Neal and we're just going to just keep dunking on everybody. It's like, no, you're not. And that's what they found out. So again, is the distinction there is the NBA then is so fast and so free about its scoring, but again, it's warranted because you have such a high level of skill set, guys who can actually shoot the ball really well. Europe has those guys, and normally they're there for a little while as almost a feeder, and then they find their way. A lot of those, like Luka Doncic and all of those guys, find their way to the NBA. But the European basketball does not have that same elite athlete, 10 guys on a roster. So they have to go to that tactical side of things.
Yeah. We have one here from Caleb McDermott who asks, what age were you when you were first asked to play for Ireland? So I'm not sure if everyone even knows this story, that your first time with Ireland was actually long before kind of the European Championships of 2005 or 2004. You were a young lad.
Like a young lad, full head of hair. It was 19.
Full head of hair.
Full head of hair. Just still, I could still go through the motion. I feel it. I was 19 and I was at school in Auburn, and my dad, we lived in Cape Coral, Florida at the time. It was Southwest Florida. My dad had called me, and he subscribed to this paper, the Irish Echo, which is a newspaper here that goes over all the events, everything that's going on in Ireland, but obviously it's a paper out here in America. So he called me and he said, hey, Pat, I'm looking at the Irish Echo, and in the back, there's this little square that says, attention, Irish basketball players, call this number. So I called that number, and on the other end of the phone was Enda Burke. And that's kind of how it started. I was then invited to go up to, I think that first one was in Rochester, New York, for a tryout. That's where Dan Callahan, Carl Donnelly, Garth McGuire, all these guys that we got together, and just kind of the start of it.
Yeah, so back then Ireland used to play in the World University Games.
Yeah.
Did so for a couple of years, and that's where Pat's career started for Ireland. Right, we have a rapid fire kind of a couple of questions for you. They're not going to be that rapid fire, but we'll go through them and we'll finish up on that. So, best player you've ever played with?
With? Oh, wow. How do you say one? If I had to say one, I'd say Steve Nash.
Steve Nash. Best player you've ever played against?
Michael Jordan and
Yeah, not two pretty good ones there. Your Jordan both of those stories actually were when you were in the arena. You told us both, and absolutely brilliant. Best Irish teammate that you ever had?
Oh, ouch. I'd say because of on the court, off the court, John Burke.
Big John Burke from Nice.
Yeah. You know that with John, obviously the competitive side of it in the basketball, but off the court, he's probably one of those guys that he's good for a good chat about anything in life. He's very funny and just, down to earth guy. So you relate to him a lot.
Yeah. Best coach you've ever played for?
Obradovich would probably be way up there. Doc Rivers, Obradovich.
And I think you talked about that previously with us, is like from quite a different perspective, that like Doc Rivers is more of a kind of
a motivator,
yeah,
more a democratic leader. It can be the authority in the room, can shut everybody up, but one of those people that he's looking to harness energy to overcome adverse situation. Whereas Obradovich is a punch in the face, a slap on the leg, get your ass moving, but effective. I mean, I really believe that because the two of them were point guards, but Obradovich, in his understanding of, let's just say, basketball science.
Yeah.
But he just wanted it done in a meticulous way. Like if you want the screen there, he wants the screen there. If he wants you running 100 miles an hour to set the screen, stop on a dime, and come down, it worked. So how could you fight it? And I never would want to be a point guard for his team, because it's not like, if you're not the reincarnation of the way he wants to do it or himself as a young player, you're in for a nightmare.
Best, we kind of touched on this before, but best atmosphere you've ever played in?
Phoenix.
Yeah. Oh, Phoenix.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking team atmosphere then?
Yeah, team atmosphere. As far as the atmosphere with fans and all of that, Panathinaikos was amazing. Yeah. Irish basketball was amazing.
The best moment of your pro career?
Probably the first game for the Orlando Magic and walking out starting lineup.
Just because everything is...
Yeah, it was like 6'10" from Cape Coral, Florida, or from Mount Dora, Florida, Pat Burke, and everyone in the arena going, who?
Yeah. No, it's hard to top. So, best moment of your Irish international career?
Probably making it back to the team after such a long hiatus. I think getting back in there and then really realizing, I don't want to call it a mistake, but the error in not being a part of it for so many years was silly.
Yeah. If you could replay one game in your career, so good or bad, so either you're trying to fix something or you're trying to just relive the experience, what game would it be?
Oh. Well, I don't know if this is the same thing, but when I left Ireland, when we just advanced to play Denmark, I left to go to the Phoenix Suns. I wish I never left.
Yeah.
I wish I had gone to play, because looking back now, it wouldn't have changed anything on the Phoenix Suns side, but it did have a possible impact for the Denmark game.
Yeah. And then last one, so you've been a great supporter of Irish basketball for the last while. You're probably closer to the game than a lot of people realize. If I asked you, what would you like to see for Irish basketball in 10 years' time, what would it be?
That's a great question. I think that, first of all, Irish basketball is in a great position right now. I think that the league itself has gained a lot of popularity since I was playing for the national team. And I think it has a lot to do with the youth activity. At the club level, you're seeing everything from, the curriculum of green shoots and the directors taking on this uniform opportunity of how to teach the game. What I'd like to see in 10 years is almost having the ability to go back to that moment 10 years from now and going, this was how we scaled it. This is how we created the ability to advance the game. And I think the advancement of any sport like that is really starting with the fun, but also in I hate to say correct teachings, but effective teachings. So if the focus is, maintaining fun, creating a lifestyle around it, and then also, the opportunity for the clinics and the ability to advance the game, I'd love to see in 10 years' time the amount of opportunity outside of Ireland starts to exist for more Irish. So if that's college opportunities or professional contracts, it's there. I mean, it's obviously it's there. It's just the ability then to continue this with some more momentum. And if one more thing, if that does start to happen to a certain degree in 10 years, it will motivate other kids to start getting into it, because they'll see the pathway. Wow, hey, there's a couple kids from our county, there's a couple kids from here that they started in this program, they started inside of this club, and then they're off and they're playing in America, or now they've got contracts. Or 10 years from now, let's have 5, 6, 7, guys from Ireland that would play in the NBA.
Yeah.
And then that little asterisk can come off of my little thing saying firstborn. It'll be like, not anymore, buddy. You're not the only one.
The artist formerly known as the only Irish four player ever to play in the NBA.
That would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, Pat, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Everyone in Irish basketball is really grateful for all you're doing to help the sport as well. And thanks for tuning in, and stay safe.
Awesome. Thank you very much to all the young basketball players. Keep it up. If a guy from Ireland like myself could have made it all the way to that spot, I mean, it's more than an opportunity for everyone else to do the same. So good luck to everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Pat.
All right. Thank you.